Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am doing the first basement anything in months because I've been kind of busy. I'm not going to lie. Things have been changed. 2026, off to a great start. And today is going to be pretty short because I just wanted to share a article from the Daily Wire, which is also kind of just the same article citing largely the Globe and Mail. And it's about the the Canadian military recently modeling a hypothetical American invasion of Canada, which isn't going to happen. Okay, largely that's not going to happen. But I understand, a lot of Canadians don't like America right now, and a lot of them genuinely believe that Donald Trump actually wants to take over Canada. Maybe Donald Trump is joking like, "Hey, it'd be kind of cool. It might be kind of fun." But no, it ain't happening. Anyways, Daily Wire talking about Canada is doing some war games, trying to figure out how this would go, especially because Trump is talking. He recently made a Truth Social post saying that there is a deal for Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region was his word, which would be a large swath of Canada's landmass. Is that going to happen? Hard to say. Yeah. Anyways, the Daily Wire is pretty quick to mention that Canada has like 70,000 active duty troops and 1% GDP spending on military. Meanwhile, the United States military has about 1.3 million troops and has by far the world's best air force and naval force. Now, the funny part is, okay, if you're an American, I'll explain. If you're Canadian, you might be like, huh? This is according to the Globe and Mail, who supposedly got this out of some Canadian government official. Okay, so this is according to the Globe and Mail from the Canadian government to fend. This is according to the Daily Wire article. To fend off a hypothetical U.S. attack, Canada would rely on small militias of volunteer or civilian fighters, the Globe and Mail reported. The militias would focus on ambushing U.S. forces using drone attacks. Some of the tactics would mirror how the Taliban fought against American and Canadian troops in Afghanistan during the West's 20-year occupation of the Middle East country, one of the government officials told the Canadian outlet. Now, the reason this is funny is because if you know anything about Canada, is that since Justin Trudeau, since 2015, the majority of Canadians' relatively useful defensive weapons have been deemed prohibited or highly, highly restricted. And so guns off the table. Body armor is illegal in Canada. You're not allowed to have body armor. You're not supposed to buy it. You're very restricted on what night vision you can buy for any purpose. Like, there's something pretty arbitrary rules about like Gen 2 versus Gen 3. You're allowed Gen 2. You're not allowed Gen 3. Blah, blah, blah. And also drones. You need a license, a very involved license to fly a drone that weighs more than 250 grams in Canada. So basically, according to the Canadian government, if the U.S. were to attack Canada, they would ask that Canadians form militias, which is not in the Canadian Constitution, not like the American Constitution, Second Amendment, well-recognized militia, not in the Canadian Constitution. And also, not only would those militias be formed to fight alongside Canadian military forces, they would break several laws in the process because they would have hopefully body armor, hopefully an assault-style weapon, and they would be using drones that would weigh more than 250 grams. So you can see that the logic here is sort of flawed, that they would think, oh, well, let's get civilians to fight alongside our military. The only civilians with guns actively would prefer America to run Canada. And the only civilians with drones have drones that, like drones big enough to carry any sort of explosive, use them for work, and they're not going to blow up their livelihood for a volunteer fight that Canada is going to lose no matter what. It's not going to be close, team. Even if you have the entirety of the civilian population, they're all untrained, they're all unarmed, they're all unarmored. Yeah, it would just be a slaughter. It really would. So Canada's only real chance in anything really is NATO allies. They're basically saying, well, we have NATO allies because people in Europe like Canada. It's not the same as Venezuela. It's people like Canada. You could imagine German ships and British planes reinforcing Canada's sovereignty. Yeah, I think the biggest problem is that Europe is over there and America is right here. So there's like realistically probably 8 hours at the least. There's 8 hours of the U.S. being able to do largely whatever they want to attack Canada. And with the 1.3 million service personnel to 70,000 service personnel, give or take 10,000 people in the militia, it would be over before the Germans and the British ever got here. Okay, it's not going to happen. And I think you might be wondering, like, why would Trump even consider overtaking Canada? Well, he jokes a lot about the 51st state. I think really the 51st state is a goad. Okay, he started throwing out 51st state around Mark Carney, and Mark folded. Okay, Mark Carney has less structure to him as a person than a wet paper bag. To his big comeback to it would be better for Canada if they were part of the United States was Canada won't be for sale ever. Yeah, Mark, well, you're about to go sell it to China, or Qatar or whatever. So obviously Mark Carney is the wrong man for the job. He's quite possibly the worst prime minister we've ever had in terms of his effectiveness. People elected the slightly more people barely voted for Mark Carney than didn't, in terms of the national election and seats and crap. And they were like, oh, yeah, we'll vote for Mark Carney because he's going to be the guy. He's our elbows up. He's going to go fight Mr. Trump and says, oh, we're not for sale. And then just runs away like a little baby because he's such a freaking, just a weak, pathetic manlet of a government leader. So, obviously, Trump knows exactly what he's doing. He is playing the political game perfectly. Because he gets this, this character, Mark Carney, essentially installed. Like, they played that perfectly, and now Mark is letting America walk all over them. Like, it's not like, well, this would happen to Polyev. No, I don't think this would happen to Polyev, because Polyev has a bit more structure to him as a human, and generally would probably have struck a deal with America that would have oil flowing both ways. Canada's economy would almost certainly be doing better under the conservative plan compared to the liberal plan. We would not have tariffs. We would not have any of this tension and hostility. We could even have Greenland. You don't even know, right? Greenland being a part of Canada kind of makes more sense because it's right there. Actually, we should take over Alaska while we're here too. But that's not going to happen while Marcus Carcass is in power. It's as long as Mark Carney is leading the government and then making strides in any direction, Canada's a little doomed. We're a bit boomed, team. It's gonna suck. So I do not intend on being part of the militia. I'll probably be the counter militia, which will be funny, I guess. Or kind of gruesome, probably. But Canada is not for sale, but it's free if you steal it or conquest it. Oh man, I was talking to somebody today, and they were suggesting that the militia would quite possibly be the First Nations of Canada. And if that's the government's plan, it would almost work because I think that a lot of them have semi-autos. They actually have like SKS and stuff. But also, they're 0 for 1 so far as a whole. So maybe we're not going to rely on them if that's going to be the defense strategy. So, yeah. Thanks, Mark. Proud to be an American pretty soon. Yippee. All right, subscribe.